I'll be able to hang in there.
What was the injury?
On my knee.
The Green Bay Packers have finally filled their defensive coordinator vacancy by hiring former Arizona Cardinals head coach Jonathon Gannon.
Who drove over here? Let me see your hands. Who took the bus? Did you have fire in your gut? Did you?
Let's first start with the obvious. This guy is kind of a weirdo. I mean, you just saw the clip, and I'm sure other people have seen a bunch more from the Cardinals Hard Knocks series.
What's up? Hey! What's up, man? How you doing? Good. Good. Shoo, 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 shoo. Shots. Explosives. You can run.
He's a goofy guy, but being this way doesn't automatically mean you're a bad football mind. We've seen a bunch of strange dudes have successful coaching careers. Now, this is probably more so in coordinator roles than head coaches, but the point still stands. More importantly, let's jump into the actual numbers, starting with Gannon's Cardinals stint, where he did not call plays, which is something to note. In 2023, the Cardinals gave up the second most points allowed in the NFL. They gave up 5.7 yards per play, which was the fourth highest. They gave up the 8th most yards across the entire season, and they forced 17 turnovers, which was the 5th fewest. I'm not very concerned about the turnover numbers though, as turnovers aren't easily replicated year over year. They're overall just pretty fluky. In 2024, they did see some improvement. They gave up the 18th most points allowed per game. They gave up 5.6 yards per play, which still was the 10th highest. They gave up the 12th most yards, and they forced 17 turnovers once again, which was the 7th fewest. In 2025, they went the opposite way, giving up the 4th most points in the NFL, still giving up 5.6 yards per play, which was the 9th most, the 6th most yards across the entire season, and they forced 19 turnovers, which was the 12th fewest. Arizona's defensive DVOA was also 4.7% this year, which was in the bottom third of the league. So for a defensive coordinator turned head coach, his defense was not that great, and they didn't improve much during his 3-year stretch. Though, as mentioned before, he didn't call plays, and he didn't have the most talent on that side of the ball either, though the Cardinals did acquire some free agents in the 2025 offseason. The Packers likely have more high-end talent than the Cardinals in players like Micah, McKinney, Evan Williams, Edge Cooper, and Devontae Wyatt, but beyond them, there's a significant drop-off. I do want to mention that I think Bullard is pretty good too in his limited time as nickelback. It will be nice to have Micah and Wyatt back, and they hopefully improve at corner and overall depth. Prior to Jonathon Gannon's head coaching stint, he was the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles for 2 years. In 2021, they gave up the 15th most points, they gave up 5.2 yards per play, which was the 7th fewest, and they gave up the 10th fewest yards across the season, though they only forced 16 turnovers, which was the 5th fewest in the NFL. But in 2022, this defense got a whole lot better. They gave up the 8th fewest points allowed, they gave up 4.8 yards per play, which was tied for the best in the league, they gave up the 3rd fewest yards, and they forced 27 turnovers, which was the 4th most. They were also number 1 in DVOA against the pass that year. This is obviously his best defense of the 5 years, and he even took them to the Super Bowl, which got him the head coaching job. Though this defense did give up 24 second-half points to lose that Super Bowl, and I will touch on that in a bit. But across the season, the defense was really good. But there is an argument that the defensive players were so good that Gannon didn't really need to do much, and that could be a valid point. The Eagles had 4 players with 11 or more sacks, including Hassan Reddick, who led the team with 16, and he also had 5 forced fumbles. CJ Gardner-Johnson was in his prime and led the team with 6 picks. They also had Pro Bowler Darius Slay, All-Pro James Bradbury, and All-Pro Brandon Graham. 3 All-Pros and a Pro Bowler is pretty dang good. Now, was it their skill or Gannon's scheme, or a bit of both? I don't know. But how many Packers players can be an All-Pro next year? 3? Maybe 4. Micah, McKinney, Evan Williams, and Edge Cooper are on that short list, I think. They could definitely all be Pro Bowlers, but I do think the Packers still need to improve at corner. The Eagles had a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro there. The Packers have 2 Pop Warner players there. The Eagles' non-award winners produced 2. I talked about the sacks, but also 5 players had 10 or more tackles for loss. The Packers had 1 player with 10 or more sacks and 1 player with 10 or more tackles for loss. And those players are the same person, and he only played 14 games. I think this defense just lacks enough talent to be elite, so I'm hoping for a major improvement at corner and adding another viable pass rusher. These improvements should help Gannon. Now, in terms of his defensive play calling, Gannon seems to run a softer zone coverage with low blitz rates. He likes to play a middle field open scheme, which means either cover 2 or cover 4. In fact, this past season, the Cardinals called cover 4 on 23% of their total snaps, which was the most in the entire league. Cover 4 has a heavy reliance on the linebackers to play zone coverage. Edge is far from a superstar in coverage, and McDuffie is absolutely atrocious in coverage. Quay wasn't good either, but he might not even be back next year. It seems like Gannon wants a defense that does not give up big plays and tries to get pressure with his front 4. Unfortunately, the Packers' front 4 is not very good when Micah is being double or triple teamed. Wyatt is a good pass rusher, but again, I think they still need more talent there. I don't think the Packers fans will like this bend but don't break defense either. It hasn't worked much at all in the last few years. Offenses are too good and will just take their 4 to 5 yard plays all the way down the field. This type of defense becomes even less successful in the playoffs because opposing offenses are naturally better due to the fact that they're playoff teams. But regardless of what fans think, it seems like Matt LaFleur and the Packers want this type of defense. Each of the last 3 defensive coordinators have all had the same philosophy. Be patient, don't give up big plays, and wait for the offense to make a mistake. Now, as for my opinion, I'm not a fan. First, I think the Packers lack a leader. They have basically no veterans on the team, and I don't think Matt LaFleur does a good job of being a leader. He does not inspire, and I don't think he gets his guys ready to play like other head coaches do in the NFL. Jeff Hafley was a leader. I loved how he talked at the podium, and I believed in him. I don't think Gannon has these traits. We've seen him in the Hard Knocks clips. I just don't think he's a leader, and I think it's important for the Packers to have one. But more importantly, I do not like this defensive philosophy. I actually hate the bend but don't break defense. I wanted Brian Flores so badly because I wanted them to press up and bring pressure. If you give up a big play or a long touchdown, so be it. Your offense gets another possession and supposedly has a great offensive mind at head coach. I want the defense to cause chaos. I want them to get sacks and force turnovers. I'm tired of playing this soft zone coverage and getting dink and dunked down the field. Now, the Eagles players were actually frustrated with play calling in the second half of the Super Bowl. They were publicly criticizing Gannon for a lack of adjustments in the second half, so this does also not instill confidence in me. I don't know, man. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll just have to wait and see. I am glad it wasn't Al Harris, however. Sure, his cornerback rooms were able to force turnovers in Dallas and Chicago, but those guys weren't particularly good in coverage. And like I mentioned earlier, turnovers are fluky, so I wouldn't want to hire a cornerbacks coach as the DCs simply due to interceptions. I also want to note that Jonathon Gannon reportedly had other offers, and the Giants and the Chargers were interested. The Packers were interested in Broncos pass game coordinator Jim Leonard, but would have had to wait until the Broncos got eliminated to interview him. Instead of waiting and potentially losing out on Gannon, they chose to hire him. Look, if they interviewed Gannon and were impressed, and they wanted him, sure, that's fine. But if they were scared that by waiting for Jim Leonard's interview that they lost out on Gannon, I'm not a fan of that one bit. I hate when they play or act scared, and I think that's just a Matt LaFleur trait. But regardless of my opinions, I hope Jonathon Gannon does well, and I will be rooting for him. So I hope they make improvements at corner, I hope their D-line gets better, and I hope he has the tools to coach a top defense in the NFL. Go Pack, go.